I am going to be speaking today on the secrets to financial happiness for a lifetime. And my name's Peggy Olive, and I'm an employee of UW-Madison and also of Extension. So I spend some of my time on the Madison campus teaching an undergrad class on financial coaching. And then I also worked for 19 years with the UW Extension, where I did financial counseling. I'm also a financial coach. I did for many years the mandated bankruptcy education. So probably have met with, I haven't counted, but it's at least 1,000 families, many times at their kitchen table, talking about what's working with their money, what's not working, what's going well, the hopes and the dreams, and how to get there. So I love talking about money, especially other people's money. So I'm hoping we can have a little bit of fun today and learn. And everything I share here today, it's in some generals about what works in general, and then it's up to you to try to apply this to your specific situation. So again, we can have questions at the very end too. So there have been many surveys about how people are doing with their money. And this comes from the FINRA. It's a national financial survey where they interview about 500 households in each of the states every 3 years just to see how people are doing with their money. So in general, and you can see with some of this that people are pretty financially stressed. This one came out about 2 years ago. Less than half the people have a rainy day fund so that if something happened, they could not survive an emergency for the 3 months. They wouldn't be able to cover their expenses. About 19% of people spend more than they earn every month. Maybe they're putting on credit cards or have other loans just to make ends meet. 24% of people have overdue medical bills. Not even just have medical bills, but these are bills that are already overdue. So, when you get sick, it's easier to lose out on the pay and you start going downhill with some of the bill paying. And then 59% were able to answer 3 or fewer questions correctly on a financial literacy quiz. So it gets pretty complicated with some of that financial stuff out there, and knowing that, okay, maybe we don't even know all of the ins and outs that we need to know to even manage our money can be pretty scary. So even just looking at some of this, it makes me feel stressed out, and I can feel what's going on out there with our money. So on the flip side, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that's been around for about 4 years, and it was developed after the recession, they did focus groups across the U.S. with people wanting to know, okay, when things are going well, what does that look like? What are some of those commonalities that people have if they're handling their money well, and if they're less stressed about money, and if they feel like they have a good handle on their money? So that's what I want to talk about here today, what we can kind of shoot for with our money. So what they discovered are 4 common themes that when they talked with people all across the U.S., adults of all ages, these were the themes that emerged. And right off the top, it was managing day-to-day expenses, just having a handle on those day-to-day, month-to-month bills and being able to make ends meet that way. And then it was those unexpected expenses. So we know things happen, you turn around and life happens, so having a plan, having a way to handle those. Then it was also financial goals, feeling like that you had some goals you were excited about that, and you could be doing something towards them, making progress towards your goals. And then finally, that freedom of choice. I actually hate that whole needs and wants thing, because life can get pretty dull if we're all just about needs. So all of us need to work a few wants and some fun things and things that are important and of value to us into our spending. And so how to do that and how to strike the right balance is maybe the key with all of this. So I'm going to ask you to just to think for a moment about where you're at personally with these 4 areas. And they come and go depending on what's happening in your life right now, on your age, other factors that are going on. I can tell you about 10 years ago when my house was hit by a tornado, my financial goals fell to the side because I was dealing with that unexpected expense. So you can juggle things and they come and go. But overall, if you feel like you're giving some attention along the way to each of those 4 categories. So even just thinking about if there's anything you feel like, it's a should, maybe I should be getting to that, start thinking about what you might be able to do in that area. So number 1, thinking about managing and juggling your day-to-day expenses. Okay, hopefully it hasn't gotten this bad for anybody here. I couldn't stop myself, though I couldn't resist. So we know it can be a little bit of drudgery, and we know those day-to-day expenses really add up. And we all have to have some way to kind of keep track of what's going on with the budget. So all budgets have two things: money coming out, hopefully and ideally, and then money going out. So what money's coming in, we look at wages, just that regular paycheck that you're getting. Sometimes people might get tips or overtime or other things that add to those base wages. We can also look at gifts or windfalls, tax returns. You have a rummage sale and you get a little bit of money in for that. So there's other ways to bring money in. And then other resources that maybe it's not cash money, but it might stretch your budget. Maybe you're claiming some tax credits, you're paying less taxes in. Or maybe you have some other school lunches or some healthcare tax credits. So other things that can help stretch the budget that aren't necessarily money. And then the other half of that, expenses. So what's going out? And pretty much every household has what we call fixed expenses, and those are really those easiest ones to keep track of, because those are the ones you know are going to be the same every single month. So you got your rent or your mortgage or your car payment or a student loan, whatever it might be. Those are usually the biggest chunk of your budget too, but they're easiest to plan for, because you know the money's gone right on the first or whatever you pay that bill. And then usually every budget has some flexible or variable expenses. So those are those things that you know you're going to have every single month, but they might change a little bit. So maybe it's groceries, depending on what's going on, how many visitors, what events are happening. Maybe it's gas money. We have no control of the price of the pumps, and maybe you're driving more some months than others. So you know you're going to have those expenses. I mean, you're probably going to want to eat sometime during the month and go somewhere, but they could fluctuate by $50, $100. So that gets a little trickier, because then, if the gas prices go up, that money's got to come from someplace else. And then usually every household has some discretionary expenses. Those are those expenses that you may not have every single month. Maybe you have some hobbies, or if you have kids and it's back to school time and you want to get some extra clothes and supplies. So those are those extra expenses that can be added into a budget that you might not have every month. And those can also throw a budget for a little bit of a loop. And in terms of what's going on with your own spending, I'd just like you to think about a recent purchase you made, just in the past day or the last few days. And because we'll come back to this at the end. And so think about just big or small, something you bought in the last few days. Write it down if you need to, so you can kind of remember it as we get to it a little bit later on. Because everybody needs to have some way to figure out what money is leaving the household, what money is going out of your pocket. And in your packets, and I have a website I will share. We have all of this information posted on our website. You also have just some sample budget worksheets, because everyone needs some way to kind of keep track of what money is leaving their household. Some people, when I'm talking with them, they know almost down to the penny right off the top of their heads, and more power to them, and that's not me. So for other people who can't keep track of that, maybe you write it down. I keep a notebook or a ledger in my purse, and I just write down when I buy something how much it was. And then at the end of the month, when I'm scratching my head and wondering where the money went, oh yeah, I can look back. Oh, I got a haircut, or we went out to eat, or I couldn't even tell I got a haircut by the end of the month. So it's good to remember to look back where my money went. And there's other ways to keep track. If you're more into some of the technology, there's apps out there, there's websites. It's nice to see many financial institutions have their own tracking. So maybe some of your banks or credit unions have their own online tracking. Mint.com is a popular one. Expensify is a popular app where you can take pictures of your receipts and keep track of them that way, right on your cell phone or whatever, however you like to use that. Or the old-fashioned paper, pencil is fine too. So there's lots of different ways to keep track of it, but the point is having some idea where the money goes. And again, I put many different budget worksheets and some Excel spreadsheets that can make some of these charts and graphs for you on a bit.ly Making Money Work website, so you can find a little bit more. If you haven't ever tried tracking your spending, it's very eye-opening. And honestly, I could care, y'all seem like nice people, but I could care less where you spend your money. It's all about where you want to be spending your money and making it work for you, and is it matching what's important to you. So finding what works for you and matching it. And if you already have a system that works for you, great, stick with it. Don't let me talk you out of it. But if you haven't yet, keep experimenting a little just to find something that helps you kind of keep track of just those day-to-day, month-to-month expenses. And there are a few red flags if people are not able to keep up with the day-to-day, or if something happens and you start kind of tipping the scales. For example, if you have some bills coming in this month before you finish paying last month's bills. Carrying a credit card balance. We know just over half of all Americans pay off their credit card in full every single month. And I've never ever met anyone who intentionally got a credit card and said, okay, I'm going to carry a balance and pay lots of interest, 24%, 32% to somebody else. Most people think they're going to pay off in full, but then something happens, and then the balance starts building and building, and once it gets up there, it is harder, more challenging to catch up on it. And then also not being able to save for those emergencies or those goals or the things that are important to you. That's when people start to feel more of that financial stress. And so there are resources out there. There's the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, nonprofit organization at debtadvice.org. So if you know anyone in this situation, that's a great resource out there just to be able to talk to someone about credit management or even coming up with a budget. Planning for those unexpected events. And you'll notice here I have unexpected in the quotation marks because honestly, how many of these events don't happen or we don't expect to happen? Maybe it's unexpected because we're not quite sure when they're going to happen, when they do happen. So it could have an involuntary job loss, or somebody gets sick or has a health event and can't work for a while. Have a recent marriage, so it could be getting married, which is wonderful and can be very expensive too. Getting divorced can be expensive. Having kids, taking on a parent if you're helping to care for an aging parent. Housing, transportation costs. So we know if you're a homeowner, one rule of thumb with a homeowner is to plan to set aside for home repairs and maintenance at least 1% of the value of your home. So just to use a round number, if your home's worth $100,000, plan to save $1,000 a year to go towards those maintenance and repairs. And that is a big chunk of change. That's just one rule of thumb for people to have a sound foundation around their house and under their house. And it doesn't mean you're going to spend $1,000 every year, but you could have a couple appliances break one year, you go a couple of years and need a new roof, and that's going to be many thousands of dollars. So that's just one thing to keep in mind if you're a homeowner or looking to be a homeowner. And then transportation costs, always things going wrong if you have a car, or even keeping up with getting that next vehicle just to have your transportation. I mentioned health conditions and people getting sick. And then people die. I hate to be the bearer of news here, but all of us are going to die at some point. So again, how unexpected is this, and what kind of planning do we need to put into place? So thinking about some ways to be prepared and feel less stressed about these unexpected events and when they're going to pop up. Financial experts recommend having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses set aside in some kind of emergency fund. And they say 3 to 6 months because if something really severe were to happen, that's about how long it would take for disability to kick in. So meanwhile, if you are waiting for some extra finances to come in, what are you going to live on? So trying to have the money to pay the rent or the mortgage or the groceries or the utility bills, just having something you can fall back on. And yeah, that would be wonderful to have that money sitting in a bank account, having it liquid so you could get to it quickly. Maybe it's in a certificate of deposit or FDIC insured money market account. So having it someplace you can get to. But on the flip side, it takes years and years to build up that kind of amount of emergency fund. So it's an ideal and it's wonderful to have, and we also need to have a backup plan. For some people, that backup plan might even be a relative who maybe already has their emergency fund saved up and they can kind of count on that person. I would say have that conversation ahead of time so that relative just hasn't gotten back from a cruise to start going through their emergency fund, but having some kind of plan in place. Another way to plan for emergencies is just to maintain good credit, which I know it's important personally and then also professionally for your jobs, maintaining good credit. So thinking about having some kind of credit card with that open line of credit where you're not necessarily using that credit card, just use it once in a while to keep it open. But if something were to happen, knowing you could put money on that credit card and then take a few more months to pay it off. So if something happens with the house or the car or somebody gets sick, it's just a backup plan. Like I said, nobody ever intends to carry over that balance in the credit card, but for sometimes it's nice to have that as a backup plan. Or for some people, they have a home equity line of credit. So having some way to tap into some of that money to be able to cover your expenses. And again, it's for emergencies. A vacation in the Bahamas is not necessarily an emergency, even in January. So it's thinking about you need that new roof and it's leaking on the kitchen table. And then the key with that is just to pay it off as soon as you can. You know, as soon as that emergency is over, then you start catching up again. You buckle in a little bit more and you catch up and get ready for the next one because things keep happening. And it does add to monthly future bills, but it does help get over a hump meanwhile. A little bit more about credit and just how to even maintain that good credit is that there's something called a debt-to-income ratio that creditors look at, whether you're going for a loan at the bank or applying for a credit card. And the lower your debt-to-income ratio, the better, because if you have money obligated and promised to somebody else, then you have less to live on in the here and now. So typically, no more than a 15, maybe even 20% debt-to-income ratio when you add it up, if you add up your car loan and your credit card bills and if you have any student loans and look at your take-home pay. So if you have like $500 in various loans and if your take-home pay after all the taxes and deductions and insurance was $2,000, that's getting up there a little bit much. That's, you know, about 25%. And then people start to get more stressed out, that we know just from finding out what that line is. So staying about 15-20%. If you have a mortgage, you can roll into that debt-to-income ratio. It's no more than 40% of your take-home pay with your mortgage and a car loan and other things. And then we know more than that, people start to get stressed out because then more money is promised to somebody else and you have less to live on in the day-to-day. So just something to think about with your own credit and your own finances. Also, who is looking at your credit in terms of different lenders that are out there? Anytime you go and get a loan, they're definitely looking at your credit. Insurance companies are checking on your credit. And most likely, whatever insurance you pay on your home, your car, or other types of insurance is based on some of the information in your credit report. And that's how they set some of those rates. Landlords, employees, utility companies, and then ideally all of us in this room are keeping an eye on our credit because nobody's going to do that for us. It's one of those things, either we do it or nobody's going to make sure the information in there is accurate. And there's 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They're the 3 major ones in the US, and it's completely up to your creditors whether they choose to report to the 3 bureaus. They could report to 1, they could report to 3, they could not report to anyone. So for example, the credit union where I had my mortgage reported to TransUnion. So when I looked at my other credit reports, there wasn't any mortgage on there. So all 3 reports could look a little bit differently and could factor in a little bit differently. And the information, if you get a copy of your credit report, it has your basic identifying information, addresses you've lived at, name, birth date, social security, your credit history, where you've had credit. Usually if it's good credit, it's within the past 10 years. Negative credit, you have more information in your handouts, and it's also posted on our website in terms of how long different credit events stay on your credit report. So there's inquiries, and you also have information about a hard inquiry versus a soft inquiry. So you can order a copy of your credit report, and it will show up on your report only to you. It doesn't affect a credit score at all. Versus if you go and apply for a car loan or a home loan, that will show up on your credit score, and it'll show up in your credit report, and it might lower your score just a little bit depending on the type of loan. So you have some more information on that and just knowing what's going to affect your report and your score. And then also public record information, any kind of judgments or liens or behind on any kind of taxes would show up on there. So if you want to know how your score is doing, it's important to keep an eye on your report, just knowing what's showing up in your report and how long it's allowed to stay on there and what's going to affect that. One of the most popular types of credit scores is the FICO score. And that's just one of many. It's just one of the credit scoring bureaus. And even within FICO, they have 4 or 5 different versions out there. So I can't tell you at all what, if you go to apply for a car loan, which score your creditor is going to be looking at. They could, with the FICO score, it could be between 300 and 850. But there's other scores with Experian where a 0 is a perfect score. So I can't even tell you exactly what the score would be. You got to look at the report and look at the information in the report. In terms of on-time payments are the number one thing, 35% of that report. And amounts owed, knowing that you're not over your credit limit. And typically not even more than a quarter up to your credit balance on a credit card. So if you have $1,000 on a credit card, you don't want to charge more than $250, $300. Anything more than that is going to start to lower your credit score. So you have more tips in your handouts and online, and that's kind of the balance of what creditors are looking for to maintain that good credit for if you need it for emergencies or future purchases. And you're allowed to order your free credit report. The only real legitimate official site is annualcreditreport.com. Other sites have fancy jingles and they have commercials and all that because they have money because they're charging you for this. But the official, boring, dull one from the government here is annualcreditreport.com. You can order it on phone, you can order it online, and you are allowed to get a free credit report from each of the 3 bureaus every 12 months. So you can get one from, you can get 3 a year, just get it all at once, or you can spread it out for the year just to keep an eye on what's in there. And the UW Extension has a Check Your Credit Report campaign. So just to help people remember to even get the copy of their credit report, you can sign up to get an email 3 times a year. We'll just send you a reminder on February 2nd, June 6th, and on October 10th, 2266-1010, just to remind you, oh, have you checked one of your free credit reports? And it'll send you the link to be able to do that. And you can visit our website to find out even more about what affects your score, how to raise a score, what can lower a score. So just a little bit more. And like I said, the main thing just to focus on is the report and making sure that information is accurate and reflects really what's going on. A final way when we think about planning for emergencies is insurance coverage. And there's all those questions about what kind, how much is enough, am I covered for all this? So there's many different types of insurance. And sometimes you might bundle some of these so you can save a little bit of money by putting some things like your car or your home. If you shop around, which is recommended every few years, typically the best insurance rates, whatever's offered through an employer, is usually the best rates that you'll find. Or if you have a membership or an association, usually they have bulk rates, so it's a little bit cheaper. And also to definitely shop around if you've just had a major life event. So if you just got married or just had kids, it might need to do some adjustments to your insurance and how much coverage you have. Definitely if you just got divorced and your ex is still the beneficiary of your life insurance, really you want to check that out and update it. So it's important to just kind of keep an eye on that every once in a while just to make sure you're getting the best rates and you have the coverage you need for wherever you're at with your life. And also watching deductibles. I mean, if you're at the point where you have a little bit of a cushion set aside for emergencies, maybe you could afford to have a little bit higher deductible, and that really adds up to a lot of savings for insurance payments. So if you have a $250 home or car insurance deductible, can you bump it to $500? Could you even bump it to $1,000? So knowing that, like if you're home, if something really bad happened, it'd probably just be a drop in the bucket, but it would save you a lot of money along the way. So even kind of playing around with how much of a deductible could you afford? How much money would you have or cash in the bank or be able to get if you had to use that insurance? And there's a wonderful website, the Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of Insurance at oci.wi.gov. Has excellent publications, very easy to read. If you're into that stuff, maybe it's bedtime reading because it will put you to sleep a little bit, sorry insurance people. But it has great stuff on homeowners, other types of health insurance, life insurance, and the ins and outs of kind of what you should look for. And number 3 on here is the secret is saving for goals. And I mentioned earlier, that's about feeling like you have some financial goals and you're able to do something about it, that you're slowly moving towards them, maybe not as fast as you'd like, but at least you feel like you're moving along and you're going to be able to reach them. And everybody has different financial goals. Maybe it's about retirement that I think about more some days than others. Maybe it's buying a home or your child's education or your own education if you're going back to school. Family vacation, whatever it might be. Just having an idea of what you want to do with your money. I mean, you're all working hard, really hard for your money. So what do you want your money to do for you? And where do you get some of the fun and the enjoyment of life out of it? So the trick is finding the room in a budget. So for example, if you have some personal financial goals, let's just say in this example, it's maybe paying off a credit card in 1 year, or getting a new vehicle in 3 years, or purchasing a house, or maybe it's finishing paying off your mortgage, wherever you might be with that in 10 years. All of these goals have something in common, and that's they have a what, when, and a how much. So what is it you want, when do you want it, and how much is it going to cost you? And a goal is just a dream with a dollar and a date attached to it. So you can dream all you want. I can dream about going to, my husband would love to go to Italy sometime, but he's already told me he's never coming back if he does, so that's not going to happen. So no, I have not put a dollar and a date to that one. But there's other things. Yeah, we are planning for retirement. We are planning for my next vehicle with my 8-year-old truck. So it's, on the radar screen, and we're making some plans. So, for example, if you are looking for a new vehicle, let's say you need a different car and you want to get something in 3 years, the clock's ticking on whatever you're driving, or maybe you have a child who's going to be turning 16 and they're already dropping hints, whatever it might be. Let's say you want to save $3,000 to have that down. And if you do the math to that, that adds up to saving $83 a month. So that's about $20 a week. So, and again, I don't know anyone's budgets here, but could you find $20 a week in your budget to put towards that goal? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Some months are going to be a little different. All of us have months where we have a lot more bills than there's money coming in because things happen that month. But overall, is that something that realistically you could work into your budget? And then how are you going to make it happen? So, if you've done that for all your goals, let's say you have a few things from family vacation to retirement to the kids' college to that car, and you've listed everything's costing $20, $50, $100 a month, and you're way out of money, then it's time to prioritize and start thinking about, okay, these are all my goals. It's wonderful. I want to work towards them, but I can only do so much at once. So it's all about picking those things that are all important to you, and how are you going to make that balance? What's going to come first? And I put some information on our website, and you have some in your handouts too. There's a prioritizer where you could enter in all these other goals, and it'll mix and match and help tell you what's coming out in terms of more important to you. Just to help, I've done that with my husband, as we enter our own priorities, just to help figure out, okay, what between the two of us, what would we save for first? And I appreciated the definition when I looked up prioritize. The first example they gave was housework didn't figure high on our list of priorities. So whoever wrote that got my number, so I appreciated that one too. Another thing to do, if you're having more goals than you actually have the money to set aside, is just to play around with your spending. I mean, we're all creatures of habit. We all have, usually you go to the same grocery store, you usually buy in the same groceries, usually go to the same gas station, or maybe you go out every Friday night, fish fry, whatever it might be. So looking at your habits and seeing what matters to you, or what you might be willing to tweak just a little bit in terms of finding a little bit of extra money in your budget. So I call this the trifecta of savings. So you can pick any purchase that you might have in your household, and I'll pick groceries. Is there a way you can buy it cheaper? I mean, we know some things you can buy in bulk and it's a little cheaper, but other things are cheaper if you buy them smaller. So even if paying attention to what you're buying, can you try buying some generics and seeing if you like them just as well or not? So you can play around and get out of the habit a little bit of what you're doing, just to see if there's other places to save a little bit of money. So it's buying it cheaper, it's making it last longer. I don't want to give anyone here, foodborne illness, so no, don't eat those old things, moldy things in the back of the fridge. But just even thinking about, I'd be the first one to water down that Kool-Aid or the juice in the fridge, and I like it better that way. So thinking about things that you're using and how special it is to you, how much would you last? If you make a chicken, can you use those leftovers for something else for the next few days? Or even using it less, having meatless Mondays and beans and rice or whatever it might be. Just even experimenting with those little ways that you want to save money. And I know I did this myself I tried to bring a lunch every day, and I was bringing a soda from home. Of course, I got it at sale at the grocery store to save a little money. But I thought, do I really want this soda, and how much is it costing, even if it's only like 25, 30 cents a can? So I just said, okay, for 1 week, I'll just drink water with my lunch and, cut out the soda. And the week went by, and I realized, well, I really didn't miss it. And then, so I did it for another week, and then another week. And then if I was, dragging or needed a little caffeine, yeah, I'd be the first one to go over there and pay $1 from the soda machine because I really wanted that soda. But overall, I didn't really miss it, and it was one habit I broke. And that's been a couple of years now, and I really have never missed that habit. But if you do miss it, it's not the one to cut out, so try something else. But it's just the thought of being intentional about where your money goes, just to find that little bit of extra wiggle room. And when we think about, once you found that money, you can think about saving it, which we think about for short term, like that's something you need in the next 6 months or even the next 4 or 5 years, versus investing for the long term, the long haul, for the retirement, which is, I guess, a longer haul for some of us than others, but even thinking about where your goals are, and making it automatic. So just out of sight, out of mind, having something just automatically taken out of your paycheck. If you figured out how much you need to be setting aside for some of your goals, have that money taken out so you don't even miss it. And maybe it might feel a little tight at first, but pretty soon you get used to living on that budget, whatever's coming in, you'll get used to it, and that money's being set aside. And some financial institutions even set up different accounts on paper so you can have, the new car fund or the vacation fund versus that retirement fund that maybe is even through your employer. So just making it automatic and putting that money where it brings you some personal joy and you feel like you're moving forward. And doing that every paycheck just starts to add up. And also even keeping an eye on the low fees. And usually if you do some investing for retirement or other things, Edvest for child's college education, some of those fees are very low and they're very reasonable. So just kind of being able to shop around and compare some of that. And finally, with number 4, the secret is spending on what's important to you. So having that freedom of choice, having some of those wants that you're able to build into your budget. Like I said, it doesn't matter to me where you put your money, but is it bringing you joy? Are you having some fun? Are you feeling like you're just going to work, making a paycheck, and then paying the bills? Or are there some things that you can be doing with your money that are little extras? Maybe it has to do with your values. Maybe you like to give back to the community, or you give to your church, or maybe you do other things, like to buy gifts for family. So are you able to build in things for your budget that make you feel good about, yeah, this is what I want my money to do for me? So remember when we talked about spending way back when, and we talked about some of those fixed and flexible and discretionary. Another way we can also think about just that day-to-day spending is that some of those bills are the must-dos. There's some things that you just got to pay, or else there's going to be some consequences. Living on the street, no gas in the car, no food. So you just got to pay those bills. And then there's other bills that are just those nice-tos. That, yeah, if things are tight or if it's a month something happens, we can cut back a little bit on there. But the day-to-day, that's what brings a little bit of fun in life. So they're nice to have in a budget. So even thinking about that recent purchase that I had you consider a little bit earlier, how did that reflect what's important to you? Was that one of those must-dos? Was it a nice-to? How is it match what's important to you? I mean, getting gas in the car and putting food on the table, going out to eat to have a little bit of fun. So how is your spending that day-to-day reflecting what's important to you, and what is it adding with that circle to all those different areas of your life? I want to give I'm sharing way too much personal stuff here, but you guys are okay. No one else will ever find out about this. So spending on the nice-tos, just something I think about with the day-to-day budget, something I hold very dear to my heart, is with chocolate. And basically, chocolate gives me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, I mentioned that tornado, and I started buying it by the case after the tornado, but I backed off a little from that because it's been 10 years. But so when I think about wanting to spend some of my money on chocolate, which I do track in my budget, I think about how much money I'm spending. I could spend a little bit, or I could spend a lot. I also think about how good is it going to be. So whenever we buy something, it could be, yeah, that was okay, like maybe a restaurant you tried, or I really like that and let's go back. So how much are we spending and how much are we enjoying this? And so let's say I go out and buy some chocolate and I spend a little bit, it's pretty bad. Maybe it's the stuff I would save for the kids or give out at Halloween, so maybe I wouldn't get that again. Then I'll try another piece. I spend a little more and, oh, that was pretty good. Something I might have again. Maybe I will get out of bed the next day to try some of this. So I'll have a little bit more, and I keep trying, experimenting with this because it's something I enjoy doing with my money. So then I just buy a little more. And along the way, I reflect on what this means to me. I remember the first time I had that hollow Easter bunny, which, okay, in the first place, it's hollow. I mean, look at the disappointment in your kids' eyes when they bite into that, and whoever invented that, I don't know. But so yeah, that wasn't doing it for me. And then I had the time where I was shopping at the farmer's market on the State Street, and I wandered away from the vegetables, somehow ended up in this fancy chocolate shop. And I walk in and they have these glass cases of these beautiful boxes. There's no chocolate in sight, but these beautiful boxes of gift wrapped. And then from behind a curtain comes out this guy wearing this lab coat with this silver tray of these different samples of chocolate. And and honestly, it was some of the best chocolate I've ever had. And we're all just sitting in the sample. I think he's massaging my feet at some point. I don't know what's going on. But I walked out of that store with a nice little gift box of chocolate that cost a lot of money. So, thinking about that, yeah, okay, it was pretty good. It was more the experience, but would I really spend that much on chocolate day to day? No, I mean, I can keep my wits about me that much. So then I discovered dark chocolate. And sadly, I was emptying out the recycle bin in my office yesterday, and I had all these boxes come flying out. At least I'm recycling the cardboard. But for me, so I found the dark chocolate that I like to spend some money on. And I even track this in my budget. For 1 year, I separated out the dark chocolate from the milk chocolate, because the milk chocolate was a want, but the dark chocolate was a need. So this is what I built my budget around. So just like I said, too much sharing here. But if I reflect back on just this one little part where I have some financial freedom and I can decide what to do with my money, I could even put that on a graph in terms of what's the most money I want to spend for the most fulfillment. And that's what I come up with. This is something that it's in my budget. It's not too crazy like the lab coat guy. And it's not too cheap. That it's something I really look forward to as a treat. And it's worth cutting out soda for me so I can enjoy the chocolate. So, and you can do this with pretty much anything. I have been in the middle of discussions between husband and wives, which is always fun, where he just does not understand how she can spend $5 on a cup of coffee, and they're like picking the budget apart, and she cannot understand how he could possibly spend $100 on a wrench. When they have some available for $10, $15 that do the same thing and look exactly alike. So everybody has this own line for themselves in terms of what that value is and what they want, in terms of how much they're going to spend, how much they can find room in the budget. So it's a very personal choice. Share this with a partner if you have, in terms of looking at your budgets a little bit differently and how much wiggle room does each person have. Because this is where the financial freedom comes in and where some of the fun with the money. Looking at your money spent and your fulfillment. Everybody needs to spend a certain amount of money just for survival. The food, shelter, clothing, you need to spend a certain amount. And then we start kind of veering off on what's important to us. You spend a little bit more to get some of those comforts. I mean, what might bring you a little bit more wiggle room, a little bit more cushion? For some people, maybe it's having a house versus apartment or a condo or whatever that might be. And then you spend a little bit more and you start to feel like, oh, I'm getting some luxuries in life. I'm getting some things that, do I really need it? No, but it's a nice little treat. It's a nice little luxury. It's almost like a mini vacation. So again, it's going to look very different. Whether it's a survival riding the bus or a comfort having your vehicle that'll start every morning versus a luxury having a brand new vehicle or something with heated seats. Do you remember the first time you ever sat in something with heated seats? It's nice to be warned ahead of time. That's all I can say. So, I mean, even that's such a personal line in terms of how much you want to spend and what kind of fulfillment you get from that. And then, if you live long enough, you can keep spending your money on whatever you want. You can get more luxuries. You can get one of every color, one of every size, one of every kind. It's your money. You can decide where you want to put it. And then you die, which I already broke that news to all of us. So you can, as long as you live, you can spend it because you can't take it with you. So, and if we step back and looked at our spending and how we balance this out, it comes to a point where for each of us, we feel like we have enough. How much does it start to feel like, okay, this is a little bit of extra, this is fun, and I really appreciate this. Like when I got to go and spend $1 in a soda from a vending machine, I'm really appreciating it versus just doing it every day. Versus, when does it turn into clutter? When does it start to burden you down a little bit more when you have to take care of it and clean it and fix it and then sell it and then get new things. And so at what point does it feel like personally, this is enough, this is adding a lot to my life, and then this is becoming too much. It's too much to take care of it. Now I got to have a rummage sale to get rid of it. It's a lot easier to buy things than to get rid of them. So like I said, for everyone in this room, this is going to be at a different point. But once you start thinking about what is it that I want and get the most value for my money, you can cut out some of that clutter. You're about to buy something at the store and you think about, do I really need this in a different color or a different size or this latest model? What is it that I really want to do with this dollar I'm holding here, or $100, whatever it is? And when you cut out some of the clutter, it does free up some of your money. You can put some of that in savings towards goals. You can give some of that money to other people if that's one of your values and what other financial priorities you have. So when you start just stepping back and looking at where you're actually putting your money, it gives you more power and more control. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of what people feel like they have a good handle on their money and where they're getting some happiness and some well-being from their money. So I have secretly divulged the top secrets for financial happiness. Thinking about that, having that handle on just the day-to-day expenses and having a few strategies for that. Being able to cover financial emergencies or goals, knowing that they're going to happen. Being able to set aside money for financial goals, starting to do some of that math about how much money is this going to take, what's the most important, when will it happen, and then that freedom. You got to have freedom with all of this and make it work for you. I had to kind of chuckle a bit when we were going through the recession and everyone suddenly was a frugalista. And everyone was into like recycling and resale and all that. And some people held out longer than others. But at some point, everyone had what we called the frugal fatigue. And you could hear the snap around the world where, I can't stand living on this budget anymore. So that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is figuring out what's going to bring you the most fulfillment, how you're doing with each of these categories just overall. And it's going to change depending on what's happening in your life and how your age, what life cycle you're in. And also thinking about, as you leave here today, thinking about what one area, is there something I've been neglecting a little bit in one of these? Maybe I've been meaning to track spending, or maybe I've been, wanting to purchase something and I could figure out how much it's going to be. So if you could think about, if you just spent 5 minutes today doing something in one of these categories, think about something you could do. 5 minutes or less, something that would just kind of get a little bit of that, I should do this, and so I'm going to just focus on this for 5 minutes and move that ball down the court a little bit more. So that's the challenge I'm going to throw out to everybody here today. Just one thing you can do by the end of the day, by midnight tonight. It's just going to take 5 minutes. And as I mentioned, I have a lot of these materials and resources on our Bitly Making Money Work and different Excel spreadsheets with financial tracking and budgeting forms, information on our credit report, and then some information on Tough Times general budgeting, English and Spanish for anyone looking for that resource. And then, of course, my contact information at the University of Wisconsin. And I'd like to thank you for having me in here today. I've had a lot of fun, so thanks for being such good sports.